Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to a random live stream. Trying not to take a nap. I figured, what better way to try to stay awake than to fucking live stream? No better sensation. No better sensation. Got some coffee here. I got like a fucked up sleep schedule. I've always had problems sleeping, and I am in a way right now. I like cannot go to bed before like 4 in the morning, and I get up at like 7:30. If I get lucky, I get to sleep until like 8:30, and that takes a toll, after a week of like 4 hours of sleep a night. Because I'll do that, I'll only sleep for 4 hours or whatever, and then you would think like, oh, okay, well, you're gonna be tired that night. It's not like I'm not taking fucking naps during the day. I can't fall asleep. So I'm hoping that I can just pull through, get through the day, into the night, and get a good night's rest tonight. It's a very exciting night, actually. My wife and I we got a little date night, and my wife is very accommodating with this stuff. John Carpenter's The Thing is at our local movie theater. We have like a kind of a local chain. I think it's called the Georgia Theater Company. And they've been open through the pandemic, or through most of the pandemic. They closed, obviously when it first happened, and they started opening back up, I think maybe in the summer, end of the summer. And they've kind of maintained, they have limited hours. They're not open like for business every day. But yeah, I try to go there as much as I can, and they do all these cool like retro screenings. So tonight I'm gonna go see John Carpenter's The Thing on the big screen, which is maybe my all-time favorite movie. Completely subjectively speaking, like I'm not gonna say that objectively The Thing is the best movie ever made or anything, but for me and my nostalgia pangs and all that good stuff, is definitely up there. It's definitely up there. I love that fucking movie. And I've never seen it on the big screen, like I said. So I'm like super excited. And it's like, it is the best argument for the theatrical experience is go watch some of your favorite movies. If there's any like revival screenings, or they have a retro night at your theater whenever they open, if they're around you, go watch a movie you've seen a bunch of times. Just go check it out on the big screen. It feels like it's like watching it with a fresh set of eyes. I love it. Because a lot of times, the only time you get that opportunity is when there's like a format change. So if, when we went from VHS to DVD, that was like, oh my God, so incredible. And then the same thing with Blu-ray, and now with 4K. Kind of got that same experience. I was cooming. I've been cooming, Bubba. I've been cooming. Anyways. Yeah, I don't know what we're going to do. I pulled up this the making of David Cronenberg's Videodrome to watch. I was probably going to bum around and maybe play a video game. Or video games. Not on stream. I could play a video game on stream, I suppose. I'd have to go reconfigure some things. It's kind of weird. Like, I don't really have a good grasp on how to do everything yet. So there's only some video games I can stream because it'll allow me to move the cursor out of the video game over to the OBS, but some games don't let me do that. Because I was gonna I downloaded all the PC versions of like the Metal Gear Solid games, like the first couple games. I was like, oh, that'd be cool. On random nights or whatever, just replay Metal Gear Solid live streaming. I can't figure out how to do it with OBS and make it actually like work correctly. So I gotta look into that. Gotta figure that shit out. Got to get that good gamer content. I mean, that's what the kids love. They love the games. They love gaming. If you want to build an audience, by God, you better become a fucking gamer, dude. If you don't become a gamer, what are you? What have you done? You're just a coomer. I'm going to be saying coomer. I'm going to be talking about coomers for the rest of my days now. Now that I know what it is. Oh, yeah. Good stuff. But yeah, so I'm just going to check out the making of David Cronenberg's Videodrome, and I just talk about it. This is like a vintage one. I don't know if you guys know who Mick Garris is, quote-unquote master of horror. He directed The Stand, from the early 90s. 1994 Stand miniseries. He directed it. He's kind of become, he's ingratiated himself with like the masters of horror. He's very pretentious about horror, and he's not a very good horror director either, so it feels very unearned. And I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. But yeah, but this is what he used to do. He used to work for studios, and the way he met a lot of the guys like John Carpenter and David Cronenberg is because he did EPKs. He would do like behind the scenes promotional material for movies. And he did one for Videodrome. He did one for The Thing. I think he did The Fly. Just to name a few of the bigger ones. I'm sure he did more than that, but yeah. So let's just check it out. We'll check it out. I've probably seen this before. I'm sure I have. And then maybe after that, maybe we'll find some John Carpenter interviews. He's a cranky old bastard and so much fun to listen to talk. Actually, I really love listening to Carpenter interviews, but let's do it. Videodrome.
15, 14, 13, 12, 11.
Soon all of us will have special names. Names designed to cause the cathode ray tube to resonate. Of course, Oblivion is not the name I was born with. That's my television name.
Suppose, for example, there were some kind of signal that could come through the television set that could make you out and kill your relatives, just out of nowhere. I mean, just suppose that could happen.
Is this still coming from Pittsburgh?
It's like they were beaming it straight into us.
Just
Come on,
suppose
get
it.
out. I don't want you to see this. Huh? Come on, get out! I said I don't want you to see it! Get out!
Ready? Action!
Your television station offers its...
Listen, if you've never seen Videodrome, you're missing out, okay? But, yeah, it's an we'll talk. I actually wrote a pretty decent article about it like 10 years ago. Maybe we'll take a peek at that when we're done watching this.
Viewers everything from softcore pornography to hardcore violence.
Well, it's a matter of economics, Rena. We're small.
It's very hard for me to say what Videodrome is about in a sentence because I think it's totally misleading to say that it's a criticism of television or that it's an extension of network or something like that. It really is exploring what I've been doing all along, which is to see what happens when people go to extremes in trying to alter their total environment to the point where it comes back and starts to alter their physical selves.
David himself really sold me on this project. There was something about, he's so self-effacing in a way. He's a very gentle, kind of kind man. I always said to David, I said, you sure you write this stuff? I said, you look like this guy with, a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful children, your little home. He races Ferraris, which is, I think, the clue, because, underneath this civilized veneer, we have one of the strangest minds I think I've ever encountered.
I consider myself, ideal bourgeois. I just, the things that I'm concerned with in the films and the people that I'm dealing with in the film are fairly middle class in what they do and what they think and what they're trying to protect.
David Cronenberg writes from his nightmares. He only writes at night. He doesn't write during the day. And if we ever think about nightmares, the thing about them that's so horrifying is not that some terrible thing happens all of a sudden. It's that something is normal and I'm talking to you and all of a sudden my hand starts to explode or turn green and you're talking in a nightmare it seems to be normal, but there's something you sense is wrong, and it's the emotional terror, the almost subliminal terror as opposed to a logical terror.
What we were sort of looking for was something that would take me out of the...
I love that her credit here is Deborah Harry. It reminds me of, what's her name? The fucking chick from The People vs. Larry Flint. Kurt Cobain's girlfriend. Love. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about. When she became an actress, she would do something like this as well. Because Deborah Harry, we know her as Debbie Harry from Blondie. But she was trying to get into the serious acting game, wanted to be taken seriously. It's Deborah. It's not Debbie. I'm not a child. It's Deborah.
The sort of image that people had of me, Blondie and being a singer.
There you go.
And
See, I told you.
Sort of this cute,
told you,
popsy
fuckers.
little, character. We did, however, want for the first film something like comedy, something that would be light and sort of charming, and people would really love me. So Nikki is not exactly that.
What do you think, Nikki? Is it socially positive?
Well, I think we live in overstimulated times. We crave stimulation for its own sake. The thing to do is to not try to be a different character, but to let the situation sort of control what's happening. When I was like really a little kid, I always said I wanted to be a movie star first because rock groups didn't really exist.
You know what Freud would have said about that dress?
Yeah. I mean, I've sort of been studying all my life. I've been observing and, you know, I've been a fan and wanting to do it all my life.
Well, it's Jay.
That's the same trajectory as Courtney Love. That's her name. I figured it out. Singer of Hole. Girlfriend of Kurt Cobain. But yeah, she had the same thing because she wanted to be like a comedian, I believe, when she started as well. She would make all these weird videotapes and send them into producers and agents. And Debbie Harry, kind of the same. Kind of the same.
Videodrome is really a strange film, and we have to do some pretty disgusting things in this movie. For example, we're doing a makeup effect on a TV set. We have
Rick Baker. Come on, give it up, everybody. The great Rick Baker passed away, unfortunately.
change OTV that becomes flesh and grows veins and musculature, and it moves and undulates and all kinds of horrible things happen to it. We've never done any effects quite like we're doing in Videodrome. I started doing monster makeups when I was about 10 years old. I was fascinated by horror films on TV and started smearing grease paint on my face. And when I was about 13, I made my first mask, and I've been doing it ever since. We maybe should pump something from the eyes, too, as this is happening.
Yeah.
We have a lot of
I can leave the tubes in on the side.
very bizarre images, cancer bursting through people's faces.
I wonder where these played. Like, where would you have watched this back in the day? Was HBO around? I mean, Videodrome. What the fuck year did Videodrome come out? Like, 1983. When did HBO come out? HBO premiere. Well, that's probably a little too broad of a thing there. I don't know. Like, where would this have played? I mean, imagine if they had, like, HBO or something. That's where it would have been. Or maybe it would have played at a video store. Like a rental place. But that's 1983. Where people weren't really renting movies in 1983. It's weird. I wonder, or maybe it was for theaters? Who watched these things?
Faces and slits developing on people's abdomens, and they're sticking their arms into it, and guns growing on people's hands. It's very strange.
I care enough, as a matter of fact, to give my viewers a harmless outlet for their fantasies, their frustrations. And personally, I feel like it's a socially positive act.
Thank you.
Yes. As you know, it's one of the most bizarre and fantastical scripts I think that I've ever read. Most people, the few people who've read it, feel the same way. And there's a tendency sometimes in lesser hands to make something like that, to make characterization less important because you have so much bizarreness associated with the story itself. And David, much to his credit, David Cronenberg, the director and writer of the creator of this whole vision, was very concerned with having it seem to be very realistic at first, and then things start to happen organically and by osmosis almost to creep into the whole film. And he felt it was very important to have a kind of texture to Max as a character that would make you be so concerned with him that as all these other things start to overlay, you become caught unawares.
15.
I wouldn't call it an obsession. I love characters who are obsessed because they're so directed and they're so single-minded, which is something that is very hard to do in the real world because there are so many things going on.
I love the character because I don't know exactly who he is. I mean, he keeps creeping up in different ways inside me. I mean, I'll do things in scenes, I'll just say things out of nowhere, little ad-libs and stuff that this wonderful crew happens to catch, luckily enough, and all of a sudden it's a completely different character than we thought we were going to have.
I don't really have a message that I feel that the world must hear in order to be saved at all. So, to that extent, my films are entertainment in the fullest sense. I mean, I like people to entertain my films rather than my films to entertain them, to entertain the ideas in the film. And the fact that film audiences are fragmented and that there are people who will just not understand what I'm doing or not care to know what I'm doing, to me that's inevitable. That's not a surprise at all. I personally get very offended when in the middle of a fiction film you see, let's say, an animal slaughtered and it's for real. I find that very offensive because it's a whole different level of reality interjected into the middle of a fiction. And I think it's a very cheap way of getting a response from an audience, because of course that kind of thing.
He must be talking about Cannibal Holocaust, because I know it definitely happened in some movies, even famously like Milo and Otis. Pretty brutal production history of Milo and Otis, where they went through like a bunch of kittens. Pretty gruesome. But I believe Cannibal Holocaust would have been coming around this time or right before this. And it was kind of a big controversial thing. So it would have been in the kind of the media, would have been the news, would have been the zeitgeist. Because famously that, has actual like animal death, animal cruelty in it. So I assume that's what it's probably what he's referencing. Just, FYI.
We'll always get a response. It gets a response from me, but not the right kind of response. But there are only wrong things in terms of what works for the context of a particular film. But in general, I'd say, no, there's nothing you shouldn't be able to show on film.
Oh, really, David Cronenberg? Oh, really? David Cronenberg, interesting director. Probably one of my favorites. I'd put him in my top... top 10 at the very least. Maybe he might even crack 5, depending on my mood. In terms of like horror and stuff like that from this generation, like in the same way that Carpenter was so great in the 80s. I think Cronenberg stands toe-to-toe with him. In fact, I would say Cronenberg is probably the more thoughtful, technically better filmmaker than Carpenter. Carpenter has a more sense of fun. Carpenter embraced the fact that he was a genre director, whereas David Cronenberg was a little bit more high-minded. He's a little bit more pretentious. And that's like, it really actually, it comes through in the material and the way he approaches the material. Like this movie, Videodrome, is it's a pretty interesting movie. It's a pretty it actually has a lot to say. They're kind of like, he's not being totally honest when he's just like, well, I don't really know what it is about. Back in the day, so how old this would have been? This was from 2012. I wrote this, so we're gonna go through it. It might be embarrassing. It might be painful. I have not read it in probably since I wrote it. So this will be fun. Maybe it'll be fun. I don't know. Might be embarrassing. Probably a little bit embarrassing. So I wrote this article. I used to fancy myself a writer. I wanted to be a film blogger, because if you can't make movies, might as well fucking write about them and talk about them constantly to no one. Pro tip: always to no one. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit. Yeah, let's check it out. So this is my article. It's called "It Has a Philosophy, and That's What Makes It Dangerous." An essay about Videodrome. Look how formal I was. Oh, I was a young man. It's almost 9 years ago. Should we read the whole thing? Yeah, fuck it. Let's do it. This is a random stream. Like I said, I haven't read this in a long time, so we're going to see if this is worth your time. I'm sorry if I'm wasting your time. So, perception is not reality. Reality is an unchangeable state. It just is. It is pure, unadulterated fact. When things happen, they forever have happened, and nothing can ever change that. Perception is reality through a personal filter. Lo-fi beats in my background here. Okay. How we interpret it in a personal context. Perception, as it exists in all of us, is a flawed system. We can only perceive things as far as we can understand them, or in other words, as far as our collected information allows us. The problem here is that information is given to us in the context of the perception of whoever reports it. To believe in a piece of information is to have faith in the perception of who or where you get it from. This is something we struggle with every day. Well, it's something we should be struggling with every day, but I digress. Where we get our perception of reality is something to be taken seriously. Too often do we accept the perceptions of people we have never met, never will meet, and that, to put it bluntly, don't really care about us personally. They only care that you believe them so that you may serve a larger agenda. This is what is at the heart of David Cronenberg's Videodrome. The film's framing device may seem like an extreme one, but the concept of perception control has been around since the first human opened his gob. In this essay, we are going to focus on two concepts: stimulation perception as a function and how they relate to Videodrome, the actual concept, not the film title. So here's my perception of Videodrome. Our protagonist, Max Wren, runs a small broadcasting station, Civic TV Channel 83. From what we can see in the film, the station seems to air mostly softcore pornography, and Max is always looking for the next titillating piece of footage to air. He wants to propel his little operation into relevance by offering his audience things that they can't get anywhere else. Max's entire life is saturated with pornography. The first thing we see Max do is look through pornographic stills from a potential dirty movie that he's looking into buying. Max is in a state of constant stimulation, and the things that were once stimulating don't quite do it for him anymore. The softcore nature of the smut he peddles to the masses isn't enough. He's reacting to the effects of overstimulation. Just like any stimulant, mental or physical, a tolerance begins to build when used in excess. One is required to do more or go further to acquire the same feeling that was once easy to come by. Nobody starts off smoking 2 packs a day. The thing is, Max doesn't conscientiously realize this. He only knows that he is bored by what he sees. Until he sees Videodrome. Harlan, a tech head at Civic TV and probably the closest thing Max has to a confidant, comes across a pirate signal that is broadcasting something called Videodrome. It looks like torture snuff porno, and in it, Max has found what he's looking for. Something new that will give Civic TV the edge that it needs, or at least that's how he justifies his desire to find more of it. Max watches the tapes incessantly and develops a need to know everything about them. He's become, in a way, addicted to them. But at this point, it's only on a superficial level. It isn't real for him yet. He hasn't admitted to himself the power that Videodrome has over him. He hasn't become conscious of the effect that it is having on his perception. It's still all just a fantasy for him. He needs something to push him a little further. He needs a gateway, if you will. An idea is a purely intellectual thing. Until we implement it into some sort of action, it only exists in our thoughts. Now, this doesn't mean ideas don't mean anything, but until we implement them in some tangible way, they are purely intellectual and are really only usable in a hypothetical discussion. For an idea to actually accomplish anything, some type of action is necessary, and sometimes a point of inspiration is needed for action to take place. Max is in need of some form of inspiration. Videodrome has given him the ideas, but now, for lack of a better term, he needs a muse to throw him further down the rabbit hole. Enter Nikki Brand. Nikki is a pop psychologist of the Dr. Phil variety. You know, the kind of psychologists that say a lot of superficial things that have no real meaning. Anyways, the first time Max meets Nikki is on an Oprah-esque talk show. They are debating the effects of TV's presentation of sex and violence. During this debate, Nikki reveals that she lives in a constant state of overstimulation. She has a dark side. Nikki is sexually adventurous in a sadomasochistic kind of way. She brings Max into the fold of her disposition. She allows and pushes Max into acting out some of his sadist thoughts. Idea becomes tangible. Max is encouraged by Nikki to mix pleasure and pain in ways that he never has, and probably would never have if not for meeting her. They do these things while watching the bootleg tapes of Videodrome. It's almost as if it is encouraging them to take things further, until they eventually are inseparable from the mysterious program itself, in a way adopting its ideology. They make the dangerous assumption that they know what Videodrome is. What makes this assumption dangerous is that they are viewing it in a completely superficial manner. They are not looking any deeper than the bondage/torture scenarios that are presented on the surface. It has an agenda, and without realizing it, they are succumbing to it. They are being programmed to perceive things the way Videodrome wants them to. But that's not all it's doing to Max. Damn, I wish I would have watched this so we could have done a Zoobox Goes to the Movie on it. Lost out. Hey, we could still do one. Like I said, I have not read this. I wrote this in 2012, and I have not read this in a long time. Look, they yeeted this clip. I had a clip of the movie here to support some of what I'm saying. What a shame. Sometimes when ideas are deemed to be detrimental avenue of thought, a variation on the term cancerous is used to describe it. They use this term because they fear that it will grow and infect a larger part of the societal body. In a very literal way, Videodrome has this effect on those that watch it. A tumor of the brain begins to form, but this is no ordinary tumor. In the film, it is described as a new organ of the brain, one that will eventually take precedent. I wrote president and completely control the viewer's perception of reality. They become a vessel in a way. They internalize the seemingly ominous nature of Videodrome's ideology, and by doing so become its programmable servant. The war for perception is about to begin, and now Max is its pawn. He can't clearly differentiate between his own perception of reality and that of Videodrome's via the growing tumor in his brain. He doesn't know what to trust or what is actually happening. Now, this is a very extreme representation, but in a more realistic context, this isn't unlike television as we know it today, especially when we consider what mainstream news is and reality television has become. They both have some disturbing similarities. They only present a distorted reality and, as a result, a false perception of what goes on in the world. Opinion panels seem to dominate the news cycle these days. But here's the thing. Facts given through opinionated means are not facts. They are that person's perception of the facts, and when we take these things in at face value, we diminish our ability to form our own perceptions. We instead are in a constant state of adopting the perception of others. This is what Videodrome does to those that watch it ultimately. Through the creation of hallucinations in the viewer, it is putting the affected in a vacuum. They are not able to view any subjective reality to form their own perceptions. They're not able to view any objective reality. That's what that's supposed to say. They think they are, but they're not. This is Videodrome's, and in TV's in general's, greatest accomplishment. It makes the viewer think that the perceptions they are given are their own, but in reality, they are part of a controlled experiment of sorts. Now, like the embedded video says, that doesn't exist anymore, the battle for the mind of North America will be fought in the video arena, the Videodrome. Notice that I drew your attention to the word battle. To engage in a battle, there must be two conflicting entities. Enter the cathode ray mission. The cathode ray mission has the appearance of a soup kitchen for the homeless with a seemingly religious slant in its aesthetic presentation. But they aren't just serving up food. Vagrants are shuffled in and sat down in front of television sets while being fed. Bianca Oblivion, the administrative presence, describes it as something akin to plugging them back into society's mixing board. The ideology of the cathode ray mission is that of Brian Oblivion, Bianca's father. Later on in the film, we discover along with Max that Brian Oblivion is dead, and has been dead for the better part of a year. Bianca keeps his ideologies alive through thousands of pre-recorded video cassettes. The collection of ideas on these tapes is so vast that Bianca has been able to keep up the illusion in the public eye that Brian is still alive. Through the medium of video, Brian Oblivion could ostensibly live forever. Given this description, the cathode ray mission and Videodrome have, in terms of conceptual implementation, quite a bit in common. They both are, in a way, selling perceptions to the unwitting viewer. They both require the viewer to acquiesce to it, even though it happens under false pretenses. In Videodrome's case, it is presented under the guise of a snuff film. In the case of the cathode ray mission, you are promised a meal. Different strokes for different folks. On both sides, unbeknownst to the viewer, they are being recruited. They don't ever make it really clear what the agenda of either group is. It seems they are concerned with controlling people, which I guess is an agenda of sorts. Videodrome and the cathode ray mission are after the minds of two groups of people. Videodrome is after the viewership of Civic TV. The cathode ray mission seems to be focusing on the downtrodden and the homeless. These two groups are part of the same subgroup of humanity. They are on the fringes of social society and of societal thinking. Because of this, they are susceptible to alternative modes of thought. Now, this is not necessarily a bad disposition, but when a person is actively looking for alternative answers, there's always the danger that those answers could be co-opted by a person with less than noble purposes. Even with these similarities, there are still some fundamental differences. The viewership of Civic TV are made up of people, just like Max Wren, that are in a constant state of overstimulation. This is important because we can make the assumption an element of the viewership will be desiring something more hardcore. Max has been priming these people for what, on a superficial level, Videodrome has to show them. I don't think that it would be a stretch to say that the average person would have little to no interest in actually watching Videodrome. It's something you would have to be built up to. And just like Max, they have been. Just like all ideologies, one has to be actively seeking it out for it to really have any effect, or to be accepted. The cathode ray mission is doing the same thing, they're just going about it differently. The viewership of the cathode ray mission are that of the dependent and understimulated. This state of understimulation creates within the effect that this is something like being an empty cup waiting to be filled, and because of their state of dependence, they are actively seeking out something. Both groups are ready and willing to some degree, which in turn makes them complicit in their fate. There are so many things to talk about when it comes to Videodrome, but when you get right down to it, it wears its subtext on its sleeve. It's about the dangers of technology and how it is used by those that would seek to control our perceptions, but it also speaks to something else that is very important. We are complicit in our own brainwashing. Perception control only has as much power as we allow it to have, so the next time you hear someone say, "There's nothing I can do about it, so what's the point of even discussing it?" just remember this simple fact. You don't actually have to do anything. You need only be aware. Wow, it wasn't bad. That was not awful. Maybe I should have kept going. Maybe I should have kept writing. But yeah, that's my spiel on Videodrome. So there you go. What a wonderful day. Oh yeah. You like that? You like the way that sounds? Yeah. Yeah, I wrote that in 2012, like I said. I was really pushing hard. I was kind of like making a little bit of traction for a while. I would write like an essay or an article or something like every single day. Kind of like what I do with the channel. I was just grinding and grinding and grinding and I don't know, just life happens. Apathy, depression, all these kind of things kind of add up. I just kind of lost track of it. I've been trying for years to kind of get back on the horse and do it. Same thing with like YouTube stuff. It took me a long time to actually get back into wanting to do it. I always wanted to do it rather, I suppose, but I just didn't have the gumption. Too much self-loathing going on in my mid-20s. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying, dog? Well, since we're going to watch The Thing tonight, since I'm going to see The Thing in the theater, let's see if we can find anything about The Thing creature effects. Some of the special effects. Creature effects. A little refresher here. Rob Bottin's special effects work on The Thing. I'm sure that I will get fucking... I'm sure I'm going to get... I hope I don't get content claimed or whatever. Well, I probably will, but I hope it doesn't pull the stream. I don't mind if I get content claimed on the back end where it's like I just can't make money from it, but I'd be okay with that because I don't make money from this right now. So what does it matter? But I hope they don't eat the stream. That would suck.
The Thing is a...
Oh, let's see here. We can have this guy explain it to us. Even better. I don't even have to do any work. Just sit here and sip my coffee. Exciting times. Exciting times. There we go. Take it away, George Rockall Schmidt. Go check out his channel, because I'm going to watch his video.
much beloved movie, and not least because of its amazing practical effects made by SFX whiz kid Rob Bottin. At only 23 years old, Bottin created what are perhaps
this is fucking crazy. Like, the guys that were doing the special effects, because they pioneer all of this stuff. Like this Rob Bottin, Rick Baker, that we saw on Videodrome. Also, the guys who, now that they do like the new Walking Dead stuff. Oh, what's his name? Greg Nicotero. It's one of them. Oh, it's another guy, Tom Savini. Like, they were all super young dudes. Tom Savini was a little older because Tom Savini started with, I think, Dawn of the Dead. Like, started in earnest his effects career, but it's crazy what they were able to pull off, like, at the time, 1982, doing some of the things they did. Granted, you know, it's not, like, super realistic or whatever. It's kitschy. We like it because it is reflective of the time that they're, like, making stuff like this, but, you know, that kind of the texture to it, the tangible nature of it. It's awesome.
Some of the most memorable practical effects of all time. John Carpenter's film is a tense whodunit, or rather who is it, as the occupants of a research station in Antarctica are invaded by a hostile shape-shifting alien thing that, Body Snatchers style, replicates its victims and infiltrates the yet-to-be assimilated. The film is iconic, not only for its tense plot and minimalist soundtrack, but also for the terrifying forms of the thing itself. This video is a companion to another video where I look at Rob Bottin's career as a whole and at his seemingly abrupt exit from the industry. Here I'm specifically looking at Bottin's work on The Thing, a film that he worked on for a year, he slept on the set of, and he worked so hard on he had to be treated for exhaustion after.
Yeah, and if you can get a hold of the Blu-ray or the old DVD, the special edition, or any of the Blu-rays, even the Shout Factory ones, they have the old Universal. Well, it's not old. It was made for the special edition in like the early 2000s. It's like a 90-minute documentary, like making of The Thing, and it's excellent. I mean, it's one of the things, like, because back in the day when you would have supplemental features, they actually would be fucking stocked with shit. You know, they would have like a 90-minute documentary going through the whole process. And and The Thing has a really great one. It's like 90 minutes. It goes from conception to execution to post-production. Kind of gets into the fact that it was a flop, if you can believe that. Came out the same weekend I think E.T. did, and E.T. just fucking ate its lunch, and the critics hated this movie, which is kind of insane.
Now, The Thing's effects, I think, remain so good because of their tangibility. Real models had to be used, things had to work, they had to be able to exist. I've heard people say that they don't hold up. Well, I think that the models in The Thing hold up really well. Yes, they're dated, and they're not going to be as gobsmacking as they were in 1982, but it's their practical nature, I think, makes them hold up so well. I can suspend my disbelief and think that that spider thing...
It's so fucking cool. I love it. Oh, I'm so excited to see this in the theater.
...exists and is in the crawl space or something. The Thing has aged a lot better in 35 years than I Am Legend has in 10. Bottin petitioned Carpenter to allow him to play a creepy character in Carpenter's 1980 film, The Fog, which Bottin ended up doing the SFX makeup for and playing Blake in.
So I got to work with him and I was very happy, and we had a good working relationship.
This is from the documentary I was just talking about. See, this guy's got it covered. I can just keep my fucking mouth shut because he's going to say the same thing I'm going to say. Me and George, we're like the same. We're like brothers.
And really had a lot of similar interests and things. And he said, guess what? He goes, I'm going to do a movie called The Thing. You know? And I said, you're kidding me. You're going to remake The Thing? And he said, yeah. He says, that's the idea. You know, and he says, I want you to make The Thing. Right? And I went, oh my God, this is fantastic, you know.
He and Carpenter ended up getting along. And after The Howling, Carpenter knew that Bottin was right for The Thing. The film had a notoriously brutal shoot. The sets were refrigerated and humidified to create the atmosphere that Carpenter deemed necessary. It took 3 months to film in studio, and an additional 2 weeks to film in location in British Columbia. But the special effects work took Bottin over a year of 7-day weeks. Often he slept on the set or in his workshop. Carpenter, by his own admission, wasn't very experienced in studio filming, having come from low-budget filmmaking. The makeup effects budget for The Thing was $750,000. By the end of production, that had doubled. Bottin said that he wanted to make The Thing, the actual thing, the monster, never look the same twice. No doubt adding to the idea of the power of the shape-shifting alien, but also no doubt adding tremendously to his workload. Now, although Bottin did no doubt work directly on many of the models, sculpting some of the more famous pieces, his real importance to The Thing was as a supervisor.
I'm basically a special effects supervisor, you know, and the designer. What I do is I'm in charge of 35 people, and I have different department heads for the different areas that I work with. I work with illustrators, I work with mold makers, I work with sculptors, I work with sketch artists, I work with mechanical special effects guys. And basically what I do is go around and try to feed them each ideas, you know, and using, you know, sketches and things like that, and working out exactly what we want to see on screen with these very talented people.
Not to mention all the work he did with Mike Ploog, a storyboard artist, to get all those SFX into a narrative form. Bottin's team used hydraulics, pneumatics, and pull wires within a puppet's skeleton or frame to create the creature's movement. They used mayonnaise or cream corn for eyeballs, heated bubblegum, strawberry jam, mayonnaise, gelatin, and food.
That's what's so awesome about this era of, like, you know, practical effects and stuff, is they where really necessity was really the mother of invention, and they would just try everything. Didn't matter, you know? That dude reminds me of someone. Somebody. I don't know who. Could be anybody, Maverick.
Food thickener for the gore and the goo we see dripping off some of the monsters. My stomach's starting to have mixed feelings about Battine's work. Oh wait, here's a remedy. Like a crazy person, Battine wanted to use real animal organs for some of the creature's parts. Delicious. However, the team ended up using a lot of foam rubber and other substitutes after a box of offal was left on a soundstage and stank up the set.
Which this is something that they actually used to do a lot. They would get like pig guts and stuff. So if you see, I think even Day of the Dead, if I'm not mistaken, the scene where the guy gets ripped apart in the hallway, like the famous scene from Day of the Dead where the guy gets like completely ripped apart by the zombies, that was like pig guts that had been like hanging out in a bucket. And they said by the time they ended up shooting and the time they were through, it just smelled like rotting viscera, you know, just like rotting animal flesh. So disgusting. It was hard not to vomit, apparently. But yeah, it was something they used to do pretty frequently. I think they used a lot of like pig intestines and stuff like that.
Blair Monster in the film's finale required 300 pounds of foam rubber alone and 63 technicians to operate. Much of its appearance was cut because the stop-motion sequence made by Ernie Farino wasn't deemed congruent with the rest of the film by Carpenter. At the time, the film was reckoned by people who worked on it to be the biggest black hole for foam latex ever. The mechanical team responsible for moving foam skins, or sculptures, went through dozens of skins of Norris's head. What about one of the most famous scenes, where Dr. Copper gets his hands bitten off? Well, Charles Hallahan, who plays Norris, the guy on the slab, spent 10 days with Battine's team, getting his head and limbs moulded, and a fiberglass mould of his body shaped and created. Hallahan was inside the operating table itself, with only his arms, shoulders, and head exposed. The rest was a body sculpted on and over him. The chest really does open up, and it really does bite the arms of Dr. Copper, played by Richard Dysart. Those teeth really did chop into those arms with a hydraulic mechanism. It's just the arms weren't real. They were made from gelatin and lined with blood-filled rubber veins and wax bones, and were attached to a double amputee.
That's like attached to a double amputee. Oh, because okay, the guy obviously has
and wax bones. And
so this was obviously a double amputee. He's wearing a mask. But I don't understand like why they would have like, what's the word I'm looking for? Why did they even bother using this shot, I guess? Because obviously, that would have been used for the bite, I would imagine. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Oh, look at this warning. Heads up, we've detected copyrighted audio and video in your stream. Your stream may be temporarily blocked. Well, I guess we're going to fucking find out.
Were attached to a double amputee.
Fuck you, YouTube.
That's why I love practical effects so much. Okay, the arms weren't real, but the action was real. The double amputee the team used wore a mask of Dysart, so the audience never knew that it was a double. Of course, it was never that easy.
It came out and it just looked like there should be showgirls dancing out of his stomach and stuff. And John goes, "Cut! Thank you very much, Mr. Battine." Like that. He goes, "What happened?" He goes, "That was horrible." Like that. He goes, "It looked like a fountain in Las Vegas, right?" And Charlie's going like, "Wait a minute, do we got to do this all over again?" I look at him and I go, "Yeah, Charlie, I'm really sorry." And John goes, "Wait a minute, what do you mean?" And I go, "Well, the stomach ripped open. We got to, take this all apart and put a whole new one on." And John goes, "We got to do this tonight." And I'm going like, "Oh my God,"
Norris's head hanging off the desk was achieved with a latex model head attached to melted plastic and gum, which allowed flexibility while retaining some rigidity. On the shot where we see Norris's head with the flames at the bottom of the frame, this particular effect was achieved only after a minor explosion on set.
Right, and he goes, "All right, light the fire bar." Guy turns on the gas. Psh, stuff's coming out, and the guy's up there with a like a lighter, and he's, and finally it ignites, right? And the whole effect, the whole Hallahan, replica body explodes. I look down at it and I go, "Oh my God, it's on fire, right? It's on fire. And then John says, don't just stand there. Put it out, you idiot.
As you can tell, it was a laborious task, with resets taking hours and hours, and no doubt many days spent on ideas that just didn't work. But Carpenter was determined that his film would stand out and look different. He and Bettine achieved that through hard work.
So just a little aside here. So I like that the copyright warning thing went away and now it came back. So I think the guy who made this video is like riding that edge where he knows exactly how many seconds of something that he can use without it getting completely blocked. That would have to be my assumption, because it's only doing it when it goes too long for a scene from the movie or that documentary. Interesting.
And the spirit of adventure. Although I'm sure it's something they needed.
This
to
guy's
break
a master.
from after it was all over.
He's a master
Stan
copyright
Winston
avoider.
was brought in to create the dog creature as Bettine was so overworked, and his creation fits in really well with the rest of the movie. The Thing doesn't just pioneer the technical side of special effects. Sure, methods of puppeting and gooifying things came out of the process, but more importantly, it showed just what could be accomplished. Norris's head on an elongated neck is real in the sense that it isn't stop motion or animation. It's a live effect, and it's an impressive creation not only in terms of practicality, but in imaginative conjuring. Well, that's about it for this look at the Thing's effects. I think that the effect...
I like this guy. I mean, this is a lot of stuff that I, personally knew just because I'm such a fan of the genre and a fan of that, especially that time period of filmmaking. But this is a great, little succinct, 9-10 minute little video. Guy does good work. Very cool. It's super cool. Yeah, it's with George Rockall Schmidt. There you go. Fellow traveler. Go give him a subscription. Go subscribe. Is he still making videos? We'll see. Yeah, he's still going. George complains. The future of Hollywood in theaters. So yeah, cool. He's still doing little essays and little things. Cool. Cool. I can support this. Gotta support, gotta support the fellow movie fans out there and people that do good work and appreciate good things. Not like these fucking Chris Stuckmans or whatever. Oh, now I'm just getting another thing again for no reason. We're done. We're done with the copyrighted material. YouTube, go away. If you're talking over something, you shouldn't be able to take it down. That's all I'm saying. It's so weird, what is what is and is not considered fucking copyrightable, or how their identification system works. It feels so random sometimes. What do you think of the Doors movie, Kilmer et al.? Actually, it's been a long time since I've seen the Doors movie. But I was a big fan of the Doors when I was a kid. When I was a teenager, I really loved the Doors, and I even read that biography about the Doors and about Jim Morrison. What is it called? Nowhere to Run, Nowhere Left to Hide. It's the one when he's on the cover and he's doing the Kilmer pose, or not the Kilmer pose, but the Morrison pose. And I from what I remember of the movie, I think I generally enjoy it. I generally like that movie because I like Oliver Stone overall. I don't love everything he's ever made, but he's okay. And I think Kilmer is really good in that movie. He's probably the standout feature of the movie, and if you want to watch that movie for a reason, it would probably be Kilmer's performance. That's what left the most, the longest kind of effect in my memory. But I remember the movie just being okay, and it's Oliver Stone, whenever he does his dad carried out the false flag, right? Yeah, I've seen the videos. Have you seen the documents? Very weird. These Hollywood rock stars, all their parents are global elitists, high level military, which is true. I mean, his dad is the Air Force. Wasn't his dad in the Air Force? I'd entertain it. Why not? The world's a crazy place. A lot of weird connections out there in the universe, But yeah, but the thing about Oliver Stone, when Oliver Stone makes a biography, he takes a lot of liberties. He's the kind of guy that's of this. He's like, well, you know, I want to give you the sense of the truth rather than the truth. The one that people called out the most was probably, well, other than JFK. When JFK came out, like, people kind of treated that in the same way that they treat like 4chan nowadays in the Q stuff. They're like, this is dangerous. This is a dangerous film. This is anti-government propaganda. You're saying that the government fucking killed JFK. You're putting it in a movie. And even though it's based on Crossfire, which is the guy that was the lawyer in JFK, his name is eluding me at the moment, but he wrote this giant tome. And I was really into JFK, because I got into JFK stuff through Oliver Stone because of the movie JFK. And then my Nana had that giant book, that giant Crossfire book, which is like his case for, you know, the assassination of Kennedy, or how Kennedy was assassinated, which the movie does kind of like an overview of. And but yeah, that was really attacked. And then Nixon, he kind of just like completely like rearranges things and changes relationships and changes who did what in ways that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, because Nixon isn't like necessarily like really based on a conspiracy. I mean, I know it's got the Watergate stuff in it, but it's really just more of a straightforward biography. A great performance by Anthony Hopkins, though. Really great. Maverick says he was the admiral that carried out the Gulf of Tonkin incident that started the Vietnam War. Jim didn't speak to him after that, like 7 years. Oh, wow. That's right. That's right. Crazy. It's a fucking wild world, man. It's a wild world. See, why didn't the movie get into that? You know, why didn't Oliver Stone get into that? I don't think he does. I don't think they talk about it at all, other than the fact that like maybe his dad's disappointed in him because he wants to be a wastrel and he wants to move down to the beach, hang out with his buddies. It's been a while. You know, I almost actually picked it up because it came out on 4K not that long ago, and it was like wasn't that expensive. I think I was at Best Buy. I was on sale for like $14 or $15, and I was very close. I was very close to picking it up because I haven't seen it since I was a teenager. I had that DVD, that Artisan DVD, the double disc. But yeah. Okay movie from what I remember, but I remember Val Kilmer being really good. I'll probably, it probably worth revisiting. Maybe I'll do a review of it in the near future. As I'm trying to get back. I'll write it down. I'm going to write it down. Watch The Doors, Sean. Watch The Doors. The Doors. Maverick says, it's a great movie. Nice to see The Doors talking about it too. Yeah, man. I wish I could, one of the biggest bummers about YouTube, because of the whole content ID thing, it would be cool. You know what I would love to do? I would love to just sit and hang out with people and just fucking listen to good tunes, like have a drink and play like chess. Like that's what I would love to do. I would love to do that. How many are still alive? I think John and Ray are gone. I think most of them have passed on. Yeah. But man, I was so into The Doors. My dad got me into The Doors, and my buddy Paul, who's on the Zoobox Goes to the Movies occasionally, he was also into The Doors because we had his dad's vinyls, and we would just like hang out in his basement bedroom and listen to The Doors. And then we got really into it. Then we obviously saw the movie. I would go and try to find every kind of documentary and like concert footage I possibly could. And you'd buy like these shitty, like they'd always be overpriced. It'd always be like, because I used to work when I was a teenager, so I had money, and they'd always be really expensive. They'd be like $25-$30 for like this 45-minute like concert that wasn't even really like a concert. It was like live video synced up to just studio recordings, which I can't stand. Because I like a live performance. I like a real live performance. And I like it when the live performance actually sounds a little different than the recording. You got to add some variety. Some variety to this shit. Let's see here. let's go. Let's check out a John Carpenter interview. I love me some John Carpenter. And since I'm going to go see The Thing later tonight, it's in the theater, why not just go full into it? The Director's Chair. That's the El Rey thing. Choice Cuts, John Carpenter interview, Post-Mortem, Mick Garris interviews. Let's check out the Mick Garris one because he's friends with Mick Garris, so it'll be a nice conversation. I'm really bummed that he quit making movies when he quit making movies. Like, he stopped making movies. Like, you know, he had a couple duds. Ghosts of Mars, which I actually there's a review of Ghosts of the Mars on the channel from like last spring. I was like watching all the Escape movies, Escape from New York, Escape from LA, and then that is technically like the third Escape movie. It was supposed to be Escape from Mars, it was supposed to be Snake Plissken originally. He did that, and then he did The Ward, which is this completely like forgettable ghost story psychodrama that just was not very good. And he says, like, you know, he's just lost kind of the spirit. He just didn't want to do it anymore. And it seems like lately, though, he's come back around that maybe he'll do something. But he might be more... I think he's more interested in just kind of playing his music with his son and or being involved in productions, but maybe not as the director. Like, he likes being involved in the new Halloween movies because they finally brought him back in and they're paying him. That was always his thing. He's very, like, working class like that. You know, Carpenter's all about, like, you fucking pay me. Where's the money? He says shit like that all the time. Very based. So I don't know. Actually, I've probably seen this. I'm sure I have. But we're going to check it out. Why not? Love me some Carpenter. Jesus Christ, it's 4 parts.
I'm Mick Garris, and this is...
When did this come out? 2014? Could you only do 10-minute videos in 2014? No. Because you could become a partner. Yeah, dude. What are you doing, Mick? You fucking hack, dude. Oh, Mick Garris. Mick fucking Garris, dude. I got thoughts about him.
Post-Mortem. And under dissection... John Carpenter, who changed the course of modern horror films in 1978 with Halloween. Where did your love...
And I love how John Carpenter just dresses like an old man. It's awesome. He's got cargo, the white sneakers. Fucking bass, dude.
...of films and filmmaking begin?
In movie theaters when I was a little kid. My mom was a big movie fanatic and took me to everything. And the little town I grew up in, there were 2 downtown theaters and there were 2 drive-ins. And I just went all the time. That's where I fell in love with cinema.
And this was in Kentucky?
That's right. Small town in Kentucky, Bowling Green. My big love was Westerns, first of all, but science fiction and horror movies. The 50s is a golden age for science fiction movies and monster movies, which I loved dearly.
And did you want to make them when you were a kid?
I wasn't sure what was going on with movies at first until I kept seeing this one name over and over again on films that I kind of recognized, and that was Roger Corman. I said, well, what is this director business? What does he do? And I finally found out. I didn't know then. I was very young.
Now, you are literally a student of film in that you were a film school student at USC at a time that really has never been replicated. What was that experience like?
I first learned about USC Film School and UCLA, the idea of it, when I was in college and I was adrift. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. My girlfriend had left me. I was kind of bereft and sad. There was nothing happening in Bowling Green, and there was nothing going to happen there. I was going to either become a teacher like my dad. My dad was a music teacher. I suppose I would have followed along in English or something like that. The only thing I really had that I loved was this rock and roll band I played in. And I was reading this Time magazine about film school. about these geniuses that are coming out of film school at the time. George Lucas was one of them, John Milius, and a couple others. And I just remembered thinking, you know what, that's really interesting. Maybe I could.
Yes, I believe it is, and it's famous for its. At the time, it was famous for its film program because, like he just described, you know, a lot of the kind of those big heavy hitters from that era went there. And then kind of nobody, like after Francis Ford Coppola, after all of them, John Carpenter, a few other people, like, I mean, everybody has gone there, but in terms of like actual big names, I don't think not so much. It was just kind of more the atmosphere of the time than the school itself. It was kind of like the spirit of collaboration or whatever, and all these people that met there that kind of made it special, especially during the 60s, 70s, and the early 80s.
Learn how to make movies, because that was my essential love. So I applied to USC and UCLA. My dad was kind enough to give me money, and off I went. 1968.
Wow. You went in there, you didn't know anything about the construction of movies, the physical construction, or did you know a little about it before you got in?
I had made amateur movies with my dad's camera. I sort of knew about cutting, sort of, but I had no idea. And it was one of the great experiences of my life. I was really lucky to be in that place at that time, because USC made you do everything. They made you write it, they made you shoot it, they made you cut it, edit it, direct it, act in it, work the sound, laboratory, animation, projection, all of it.
But there's nothing like storytelling. You can not have a command of the language.
Look at Mick Garris here. This is Mick Garris circa 2014. You want to see what Mick Garris looks like today? He looks like an old witch. I think he even has long fingernails. this vegan dude. We got, man. I used to listen to this I listened to his podcast post-mortem for a while because he would always get quality guests because he's probably a very nice man. He's probably a very nice guy. Okay, I'm not suggesting that he's not. I just know as a creative, he's a hack, and he lumps himself in with these people. Like he thinks he's like part of this group of like Cronenberg and Carpenter and even Guillermo del Toro. Like he thinks he's like one of these dudes. Fucking drives me insane. And I don't know why. It's such a stupid thing to have bother me. And yet here I am. Can't help myself.
Language and still make a good film if you have a good script, a good cameraman. What do you feel that you learned in that gave you the style?
Style is all about instinct. It's all about how director sees things. If you watch any of the directors that you admire, or I admire, anyone admires, and you watch their work, you can see what their concerns are and how they approach things and how they approach the characters, how they approach the world they're in. So it's instinctual type thing. A director makes movies about himself all the time, in some way or another. So, but it's finding a way to express, in visual terms, the instincts that you have, the feelings that you have inside. And I had no idea how to do that. So that taught me. Plus, at the time, some of my visiting professors who came down and lectured, Orson Welles, Alfred Hitchcock, John Ford, Howard Hawks, Roman Polanski came down with his film.
He just like named like every great director of the 40s, 50s. Fuck.
Rosemary's Baby.
Wow.
We had Antonioni. It was unbelievable time to listen to these guys talk about movie making and then watch their films. I can't tell you what that was like.
Now, you had a very early brush with Oscar, with The Resurrection of Bronco Billy, which you co-wrote and you edited and the like. What was that experience like?
Bronco Billy was a senior production project at USC. And you form crews, and you go out and make a film, and we all contributed to the story, and I did the editing and the music, and it was a nice little film. I mean, it wasn't any great shakes. And it wins the Academy Award for short film. The couple of days after we won, the head of the Department of Cinema came in, had the Oscar in a bag, a plain paper bag, and we got to look at it. And then he pulls it away.
Oh, really?
Oh, they were real jerks down there. Really pieces of work.
Now, the transition from film school to working in Hollywood was an interesting transition because you kind of halfway were there with Dark Star, which wasn't that a student project that became a feature film?
That's right. Dark Star was a graduate film project at USC.
You know what's crazy? As big as a Carpenter fan as I am, I have never actually seen Dark Star. There's two Carpenter movies. I've never seen Dark Star, and I've never seen Memoirs of an Invisible Man, the one with Chevy Chase. I've never seen that one either. I guess I got to get on that. It's like one of those things, just like just kind of is memory hold for me for some reason. I just always forget that it exists. That one and the Chevy Chase one. Probably just because it's so, at least the Memoirs of an Invisible Man, it just is so kind of out of the norm for what you perceive, what you think of as Carpenter. But I definitely I gotta see it just to be a completionist. I probably gotta buy it because I'm a psycho. It's probably gonna happen. That's probably when I'll see it, is when I buy it. Like a psycho.
See, began that way, made 45 minutes of it. I partnered up with Dan O'Bannon, very, very talented.
Maverick says, Mick reminds me of a fairly famous 90s supporting actress and it's driving me crazy. Yeah, he's kind of got that nebulous middle-aged woman vibe to him. It's not Meryl Streep, although if you put Garris,
The guy, he was co-writer with me, production designer, and an actor in the film, and he was the editor. And we raised some money to...
Look, because Mick knows all these stories, and he's like a little schoolboy. Oh, thank you, John. Thank you for being here. Thank you for fucking being here, John. Like, this is how I talk to... Well, this is what I look like when I'm talking to an old person. I'm just like a very elderly person, and they're telling me a story that I've probably heard already. This is like when I would talk to my 80-year-old grandma. This is the gate. This is the forum that I would take. Hands clasped in front of me. Like, oh, that's very interesting. Wow, nice.
Shoot it as a feature, and it became a feature, and we met the legendary Jack H. Harris, who finally released it.
The man who released The Blob and
That's
was
right.
responsible
and Son of Blob. And
yeah.
I learned a lot about the movie business from Jack Harris. A lot of it. Oddly enough, my first big paying job in Hollywood came through him, from a little screenplay I wrote called Eyes, turned into The Eyes of Laura Mars. He knew John Peters because they lived near each other in Malibu. So he got him the script, and they hired me to write it, and it was very nice.
Well, the transition first of all, making professional films where you have a schedule, you have...
Yeah, who does he look like? Now you got me thinking, Maverick. He definitely looks like somebody that we should recognize.
To keep in a budget and people who have purse strings, and you can't just hire your friends. What was that experience like doing it for the first time with Assault on Precinct 13?
Ooh.
The first time I worked with 35 millimeter and Panavision.
Actually, I wanted to get somebody. There's somebody that my wife grew up with, who's a big Carpenter fan. He's supposed to come on Zoobox Goes to the Movie, so I've been holding a lot of Carpenter stuff back because I want to talk to this dude about it. But I might just have to go just do my own video. And, I could do my own video and still do a Zoobox Goes to the Movies for somebody else, because I just got the remake of Assault on Precinct 13. I got it like a double disc of that and Alpha Dog, I think. And so I was going to revisit both of them. I might do a double feature, do a video about those. But, man, I have not, it's been a few years since I watched the original Assault on Precinct 13, but that movie is so fucking rad. Really I have arrived moment for Carpenter. Like, a lot of people, maybe they think of Halloween, and I like Halloween. I probably respect Halloween more than I like it, but that Assault on Precinct 13 is such a great movie, and it's really kind of shows you the roadmap of where he goes after Halloween. Halloween is kind of like a little bit of a deviation, because he once he gets back into after Halloween, and he starts doing Escape from New York and stuff like that. It's much more the same vibe as Assault on Precinct 13 than Halloween is. So, interesting.
on Assault on Precinct 13. It was independently financed again, so there wasn't a big producer presence over my head. But it was stunning having to get up that early in the morning and go work. I just wasn't used to it. And it was a really grueling, grueling shoot. My longest day on that film, 24 hours in and out.
Wow.
In a real jail. And it was a nightmare. It was an eye-opener in terms of what you have to do to prepare. What do I need to do to prepare this film? That was my real big training ground there.
Oh, and it's a big action film with a lot going on, even though it's in one location for the most part.
It's a little tiny movie, Mick.
It's a little tiny movie, but there's a
film.
lot going on, and that's really tough stuff to do, especially when you've got walls being shot out and things blowing up.
Oh,
there.
yeah.
Must have been an interesting experience,
It was. It was. It was the physical hammering that you take on it that I wasn't prepared for yet.
Now, have you always been drawn to genre, whether it's Western or thriller or science fiction or horror?
Man, in the beginning, I just wanted to be a director. I didn't care. And I got in the business to make Westerns. That was my first love. About as close as I got to that was I sold a script to John Wayne's company, Batjack, and I worked over there for about a year on the Western.
Really?
But by the time JW, as they call him, read it, and he was too old and sick.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Assault on Precinct 13 was sort of a Western. It was sort of Rio Bravo. It was sort of a Howard Hawks movie.
Yeah.
Was that the intent?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I became a big Howard Hawks fan in film school. He was a director that's not really well known. It really isn't well known today outside of film buffs. But I just fell in love with his work.
And of course, Hawks did The Thing originally, which was a big inspiration to you. Who were your other heroes besides Hawks?
Hitchcock, I think, for his technique, Polanski. But the same directors that everybody at the time revered as classic American directors, Orson Welles. John Ford a little bit, although I really soured on him after a bit. Irish vaudeville, I can't take it anymore. I can't take the scenes where they're dancing, and they're oy. The Searchers is such a great movie, but it's ruined in the middle. Ruined by the return, where they're getting married. And
you know, he's not wrong. I really love The Searchers. I like John Ford. You know, he's, you know, a sentimental kind of director, but I would not disagree that The Searchers, in the middle of The Searchers, it is such a weird tonal shift, and it gets very silly. And even though the movie itself is kind of like, it's just kind of dark and depressing, and it's about like the death of the West, and it has a lot of really rich subtext, and that it kind of gets in the way in the middle. So I would definitely agree with John. I wouldn't say I was soured on John Ford, but yeah. Maverick says, I feel like once your hairline retreats past halfway line, it's time to go short. Well, hey man, can't tell that to the master of horror. He does what he wants. He does what he wants, Maverick.
Knock the firewood off my shoulder.
It gives him like his own look though. Like, you know, Carpenter's got like a unique, it's a very flattering still for him, but he's got like a very kind of unique face. Like he looks like he would be like an interesting character actor. He's one of these guys that would be cast as like the Lee Van Cleef type dude in a movie. He would be like one of the baddies. One of the dudes like hanging out in the saloon, like grimacing.
Aye. And when I saw it as a kid, I loved The Quiet Man.
Or he would be like a terrorist. He'd be like a domestic terrorist. He'd be like the guy in charge. I could see that. You know, if they had made Metal Gear Solid, if they had made a Metal Gear Solid movie a while ago, he could have been like, if you don't, it's a video game, so you might not understand this reference, but if they had done that a while ago, he could have been like Bill and Kill Bill. Yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah. Kind of a David Carradine type of presence, right? If he was a like Big Boss, like the old man Big Boss, that would have been cool.
Man, but revisiting that is just makes me want to tear it up.
Really?
God, it's so sentimental, and its point of view is totally immigrant. Whereas Hawks was a completely integrated filmmaker. He was not sentimental. If anything, he was hard-ass. But Ford was sentimentalizing the West and women, especially mothers. And behind the scenes, of course, that was not like that, but that's what showed up. He made one great film that was tremendous, The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh,
it was just terrific movie.
Well, the thing about Ford, though, is his pictures. I mean, the visuals, the fantastic Monument Valley shots and things were just, visually, his stuff was so breathtaking.
Some of it. Some of it.
Yeah.
But, and not that I don't make this mistake on every film, but this guy could not direct stage lines. Look at the interior of the Stagecoach. In Stagecoach, when they're all sitting around, it's a mess. You can't tell who's talking to who.
Yeah, they're looking apart from each other. And
it's bizarre. Yeah. But no, you're right.
This is why Carpenter's awesome, and there's a few directors that are like this, where he just kind of is very open about how he feels about things, and he'll be very specific about why he does or doesn't like things. It's something I've always kind of appreciated about him, because he does not give a fuck. Like, especially 2014 Carpenter does not give a fuck if he ever works again. He doesn't care. He likes to hang out and smoke cigarettes and play fucking Xbox. Like, that's what he says. He's like, yeah, and I like to noodle around and make music. And he's been on tour, or he was on tour for a while with his son. They have a band, or they go play, like, there's some original pieces, but they play a lot of his film score stuff. Because, you know, as you probably know, Carpenter did a lot of his own score in a lot of his movies, so. Interesting cat. He's a cool dude.
He sort of memorialized Monument Valley. But yeah, he was an American master, you have to say.
He's like, yeah, but fuck that guy, you know? You know what I mean, Mick? Fuck that dude. Okay. What do we do now? I think I gotta go. Yeah. It's a short little random stream. I'm gonna go clean up the house. I gotta get things ready before I go out and watch The Thing in the theater. So I look forward to a video for that. Just talking about what it's like to watch The Thing in the movie theater. That's probably what I'll do. Maybe when I get home from the movie theater. Who knows? We'll see. Who knows? It's not often my wife and I get to just go out and fucking go see a movie or something. So that makes it extra exciting. And the fact that she puts up with my shit and will actually go to see The Thing with me is pretty cool. It's a pretty cool thing. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining me, Maverick, Prophet, Danimal. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on Monday nights. That's when I'll be back. Monday night around 10 o'clock. And I got some stuff. I actually have a direction to go on Monday night. So we'll have some fun. Adios.